Hello guys, and welcome to this iOS Human Interface Guidelines tutorial, and this will be given by me, Danny. So this is actually a book published by Apple, and you can find it on their website, developer.apple.com, and it is actually 156 pages book, and you can get the link down in the description below. Press on it and download the book and read. But instead of reading it and consuming all that time, I'll be showing you in this video what like a summary of this book, and this book consists of 9 chapters, so I'll be dividing it in 2 parts. Let's just start and I'll show you everything. So let's go to chapter 0. Chapter 0 has 3 points. So the first bullet says people expect to find iOS technologies in the app they use. So when you create an application, you have to consider adding some iOS features and technologies like the multi-touch, multi-gesture, the different gestures, like the notification center, like anything that has to do with iOS. So the second point is pay attention to details. So if you want to create an application, you have to pay attention to details, and details are the design. So when you create your design, don't just create any rubbish background with some ugly images, because the user will only see your design and will not care at first for the features of your application. So you have to pay attention for details. And of course, this leads to the third bullet, which is all apps need at least some custom artwork. And custom artwork over here means that you have to work with, let's say, some programs. I'm not gonna mention names, but some editing, photo editing and image editing programs to create some unique pictures and some good designs. And you can also hire some graphic designers if you think that your application is like a big one. So let's move to chapter 1. Chapter 1, and you can find this in page 13, chapter 1, table 1.1. And actually this will tell you about the resolution, the sizes, different sizes of screens you'll get. Well, this book is a little old because we now have the iPhone 4S besides the iPhone 4 with 640 by 960 portrait mode pixels. For the iPad you can get these resolutions, and for other devices, iPhone 3G and 3 and just not 4 and 4S and your iPod touches, you will get this resolution. So you have to pay attention to these measurements. Now, gestures users makes to interact with iOS-based devices. This is page 14, and this handles all different gesture types and the explanation about each one. If you want to see a video about this one, you can refer to my videos series, iOS development series, and I've dedicated a tutorial for different gestures. Now let's move to this point, which is very important. The minimum clickable thing or button on your screen should not be less than 44 by 44 points, and points, not pixels. So what's the difference between points and pixels? Pixels versus point. 1 pixel equal to 1 point. So, but except for Retina display for iPhone 4S and for iPad 3, I guess. Now 2 pixels are equals to 1 point, and you have to do the math for that. Let's move to the next point, which is multitasking. You have to pay attention that your application will actually have to deal with different stages of multitasking. So your application will be running, then suddenly it will be in the background. After that it will be showing again. So you have to manage different situations. This is all about multitasking. We move to the next one, which is really important. It's about help. On-screen user help is minimal. You should not include any help instructions, or you have to include the minimum amount of it, because everyone is using iPads nowadays, so and also iPhones. But this cute little girl here, she's like 2 years old, and she's actually using her iPad without reading instructions. She can't read. And there's a bunch of children over here too. They are playing a game without even reading instructions because everything is using a touch technology. I don't know why I'm moving this mouse this way. So Safari provides the web interface. So Safari is your browser, and it's not welcome to create a browser and upload it as an application, because there is Safari and your application will of course get rejected. And you have to do and to pay attention for one more thing, which is using UI web views. Try to use the minimum of amount of UI web views inside your application, and just don't create browsers. Now we move to chapter 2. I know that this is a book and this is boring, but you have to handle this because you'll be watching like 20 minutes instead of reading 156 pages. So we move to human interface principles, and one important thing is consistency. Now, if you can, let's say, pinpoint or pin out, let's say 5 wrong things with this design, then you are good at consistency. Now I'm gonna help you with revealing the wrong things. First of all, the title is on the left. It should be centered. Second thing, with the title, which is the capital letter, uppercase, lowercase, they should be consistent. Number 3, the background color is ugly. Number 4, the labels over here have different sizes. Number 5, the segmented control here is a bit, or not a bit, is really shifted to the left, to the right, and it should be centered and minimized. The buttons over here, if you want number 6, are of different sizes, and it's preferred to be the same size. Number 7, this button is really small, and it may be less than 44 by 44, so you have to pay attention to this. The switch over here, number 8, is not aligned with labels, so there are a lot of wrong, inconsistent things. Now here's a design, the same one here, the same functionality, the same elements, but arranged. Well, you may think that this is more artistic, but I guess this is a better approach to your application. So we're gonna burn this one and lose it forever. Okay, now you have to pay attention that people controls your application, not the application itself. So if you have like a method, you have to assign it to a certain button. When this button is pressed, this action will be triggered. It's not good to trigger actions and let methods run and execute by their own. So pay attention to this one. Now we move to chapter 3. Chapter 3 tells you about how to design your application. Not the usual design, the interface, no, how to create an application. There are 3 steps for that. List the application features, then determine your users. So after listing, ask yourself, who are my users? And after knowing your users, you will be filtering your list by deleting or removing some features that do not match with this type of users. So you'll get the new and final features application form, and you can start your application. Okay. Design the application for the device. So this is an important thing. Now, a lot of you guys have experience with, let's say, Android or any other platform, a mobile development platform. So don't just copy your, let's say, Android application and put it here on and upload it to the App Store as an iPhone application, because this will be not good and the user will not be familiar with your application and it would be definitely wrong. So one of the examples is Android, another one is Windows Phone. So we're gonna do a bad thing to these guys. We are just going to burn them in order not to use their applications and create an iOS application that is copied from outside sources such as Android and Microsoft, although they do it, they always do it. Anyway, let's be the better guy here. Now let's move to the universal application. So if you want to create a universal application, which is an application that runs on both devices, the iPhone and the iPad, in different let's say views or having different designs, but they have to have the same functionalities. So let's check this application over here and rate it. This is called the love meter. You enter the guy's names, the girl's names, the girl's name, and here's the progress view. You press on calculate and the progress view will go from 0 to 100 and then generate a random number here. The iPhone version of this is the love meter. Same thing here. Calculate the progress view and the actually this one, the random number generator. So the only difference is the design, the backgrounds, but the functionality is still the same. So pay attention that when you create universal applications, they have to be the same or similar, not just let's say two different applications with different functionalities. So this is a good example of universal applications. Now we move to usability, which is a big what? Which is an important thing. So you see this old phone. I don't know what is called, something like rotary, or I don't know. So this phone over here, of course your grandma still had one, and it is the old-fashioned way of using phones. So if you want to, I'm not going to explain about this one. Of course you all know it, or most of you know it. So let's say that you want to use this one as the actual caller or number dialer in your application. For how long will you use it? Well, this is a cool feature and a cool app, and you'll be using it for like 3-4 times, and then it will be just nonsense. It will be time consuming and you will not be using it because it is out of date and it won't be helping you with your things. So this is not a usable application, this is just a cool one, and this is a usable application that will measure the angles for you, and it's really a good example for usability. Let's move to chapter 4. Okay, chapter 4 is talking about tables. There are different types of tables: the edge-to-edge list and the corner rectangle list, and there are different height and width for that, so you can use it, you can take advantage of this when you're creating an application. Let's move to chapter 5, and chapter 5 talks about primary task and logic path. So first of all, I've created this simple application that actually does nothing, but it's a good example here. So first of all, you have to concentrate on the primary task. Now you have this application is obvious that you will enter some text here, then press down, then get the result over here. But you see the done button is really huge and the result is really small. So instead this has to be converted. Done buttons should be just normal size and the result should be a big size. So since it is the functionality of this, it represents the functionality of the application. Now, so this is a bad example of primary task, of concentrating on the primary task. The second thing is the logical path to follow. So when I download this application, I want to use it, I expect to read the title, then to use the functionalities from top to bottom. So I will be entering some text, then I will press the done button, then I will get my result, and this is a logical path to follow. So this is a good example for a logical path to follow. Now let's move to this one. Make usage easy and obvious. As you can see, the main thing here is the time I'm calculating, or this is a stopwatch application, actually the clock application on your iPhones. So you can stop it, start it, and the lab. These are the functionalities. It represents the functionality of your application, and this is a good example of how easy usage of your application and the obvious usage is. So this is a good example, and you have to do the same. Now this is an important thing, not just because you are a developer and because you are a programmer or a computer geek or anything related to computer, you have some knowledge, computer knowledge. Don't think of using technical terms in your applications, because only or mostly normal people, regular people from other fields will be using the applications and your devices, so don't expect them to understand technical terms. Just keep technical terms between you and your colleagues. So use simple language, plain English, and as you can see, we use Wi-Fi and ask to join networks with some switches. Apple has gave us a good example of using plain English. So this is called user-centric terminology. Now we move to this one. Make it easy for users to input their choices. So use these elements so that the users can input their choices, like the switch, the text field, the segmented control, the button over here, and try avoiding try to avoid creating some custom UI elements, unless your application is really complicated and needs, actually not complicated like a game, and needs a specific button that goes with the theme or anything. But for a simple application, use these code because the user is familiar with these. Avoid including settings in your application. So in your application, if you have an application that would want to use settings for just once, so you installed your application and you need to enter some settings for one time and your application will be fine. So avoid doing this inside your application. Instead, do it outside your application in an application called settings, and this will be available with your iPhone system. So you can implement settings outside your application instead. Now use UI elements consistently, sorry, and I've explained about these one. Use them as you can, and try to avoid creating some custom ones. Oh. This is a really important thing, which is physicality and realism. So remember, in a certain point of our lives, we used to use this real address book. Now, if we want to switch to the digital world, well, we have to keep some, let's say, relativity between the actual book and the fake or the digital book. So this is an example of the address book app available on your Macs or iPads, and Apple has just did a great example of giving us the feel of a book, an actual book, just to use as an address book app. And there are some more examples, which are the recording app, the notes app, and these are great examples for some realism. Okay, and of course, Apple also has given us or supported us with this example that actually tells us more about handling orientation changes. So the user of the application will be using the application in both directions or orientations, the portrait and the landscape. So just make each orientation, let's say, good enough to be used in that orientation. So this is an example, the calculator. So if you use the calculator in portrait mode, you'll get a simple calculator. If you use it in landscape mode, you'll get a scientific calculator, and this is actually really cool. So make targets fingertip size. Also, this is important, the 44 by 44 button. So I think this is all for this video. I'm gonna upload another video with chapters 6, 7, and 8 and some other helpful tips. Hope you enjoyed it. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe to my channel, like it, comment anything you want, and I'll be seeing you in the next part.